Good day and welcome to Encounter. I'm Rabbi Allen Secher, and are we going to encounter today? In my past, back in the days even when I had hair, I was privileged to be rabbi in Mexico City. It was a wonderful world I knew then. It was 3 wonderful, glorious years. I deserved them. They were great years. My successor in Mexico City was and is a rabbi named Sam Lerer. Sam is visiting us in Chicago, and we're going to encounter Sam, and we're going to talk about the Jewish community in Mexico City. Sam Lerer, welcome to Encounter.
It's a pleasure.
Glad you're here. Sam, I want to start because I know it, but our viewers don't. Let's start by tell us the genesis of the Mexican Jewish community.
When you see the Genesis Mexican Jewish community, originally a large community was arriving in Mexico in 1521, 1522, together with the conquistadores, with Hernán Cortés. But unfortunately, the Inquisition followed them. Many of them were killed. Many of them became Christianized, and many of them escaped into the mountains. So the actual community, the birth of the new community, was after 1821, when the Mexican Revolution, at that time, they eradicated the law of Inquisition. But actually, the last Jew who was burned at stake by the auto de fe was in 1820.
It was in 1820. All right, and we're going to talk about Marrano Jews, or we're going to talk about that community, but there's a gap, because the heart of the Jewish community, as we know it in Mexico, with its 14 synagogues and so on, is since that time.
Yeah, that began approximately in 18, I would rather say 1860, were the first Jewish immigrants who came from Germany. And then later on, Jews from the Arab countries, who are the Sephardic Jews, came to Mexico.
But what would bring a Jew to Mexico in the 1840s, 1850s, 1860s?
Unfortunately, we were always suffering persecution. Why were we called the wandering Jew? Because people forced us to be wandering from one place to the other.
And so a Jew, as I best remember it, a Jew came to Mexico City because primarily couldn't get into the States.
Most of the Jews from Eastern Europe actually came to Mexico with the thought and the idea and the hope that eventually they'll get into the United States. But then, as you remember, when the United States declared a quota, then they were stuck in Mexico.
All right, let's structure the present Jewish community of Mexico City. Tell me what's there in the sense of congregations, what's there in the sense of numbers.
At the present time, we have approximately in Mexico City, because we have little congregations outside, but the main Jewish body is in Mexico City. We have approximately 50,000. And they are divided into, I would say, approximately half and half. Half Ashkenazim, who come from Eastern Europe, and half of them are the Sephardim who come from Arab countries.
And of the 50,000, at least when I was there in the 60s, there were 14 shuls. There, 13 you wouldn't go to, and 1 you might go to on occasion. Is it the same 14 shuls?
Well, actually, we have 2 more now. Than they used to have. So we have, but actually we have 12 rabbis, because the other congregations are small and they don't have rabbis. But in all, we have 12 rabbis in Mexico City. I'm one of the 12.
You're one of the 12.
Yeah.
Now, but your congregation, I used to refer to it as Reconservadox, a little bit of everything. Your congregation is English speaking.
Well, because my congregation, which was your congregation, Alan, is the only English-speaking congregation in all of Latin America. They are to accommodate the American Jews who came to settle in Mexico, those who are working at the English-speaking embassies, like the American embassy, the Canadian embassy, the British embassy, the Australian embassy, also those who were executives in the large American companies like Ford, General Motors, General Tires, many other American large companies. So by necessity, they would come to my congregation because that's the English-speaking congregation. Also, as you know, most of the visitors, the tourists, are either from the United States or Canada. Some of them come from Great Britain. By the way, you know that there are no tourists from South Africa because Mexico forbids.
Won't permit it.
Won't permit
because
it
of apartheid.
Because of apartheid, yeah.
There are two phenomena that also ought to be talked about. Since your congregation is the only English-speaking congregation, the rest are either Spanish or Yiddish by and large. There's two phenomena that are semi-unique to Mexico City. One is Comité Central, the Central Committee, and describe that for us, Sam.
Now, the Comité Central is a very necessary organization. Unfortunately, people ask me, is there any anti-Semitism in Mexico? Regardless how small the Jewish population is, there is still anti-Semitism. So we are only 50,000 in a country that has 75 million, and that 75 million 3 days ago when I left Mexico. By now there's many, many more.
There's 85 million, right?
Who knows? But still there's anti-Semitism. So the Comité Central is an organization that they have representatives from every synagogue and every social organization, whether it's B'nai Brit or the Zionist or whatever it is, so they all have representation in the Comité Central. And they are trying to combat whatever anti-Semitism is.
It's sort of an organizing body then for the Jewish community.
A beautifully organized body.
Much in a way like our federation would be, or different?
More so than the federation, because they represent all the synagogues and all the social, or even, as you know, that we have there the Centro Deportivo Israelita, which is a beautiful community center, which is probably the largest in the world. They also have representation on that committee.
That would have been the second phenomenon that's slightly different, is the community center. The community center had something that was quite unique in the sense that the Jews all congregated at the community center in my days there. And one of the things that was very probable was that intermarriage did not exist greatly in Mexico. Now, this is now 20 years ago. Has that changed greatly, Sam?
Well, certainly it changed, because the question is, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a ghetto with preserving Jewish identification, or break the ghetto, have complete liberty, and have the danger of identification? Now, we have the National University, as you know, which is called La Ciudad de la Universidad, the city of the university. It's the largest university in the world. There's over 300,000 students. Now, on the campus, a boy or a girl of whatever faith, they all look alike, because they all have the same blouse and the same pair of pants, and they invite each other because we have total equality, total freedom, and certainly when you fall in love, love knows no demarcation. And that's where eventually ends up into marriage. Certainly, I would say that 95% of those who marry, the boy or the girl would enter the Jewish faith.
Would enter the Jewish faith?
Would enter the Jewish faith. That I don't know. Evidently, the Jewish party must be stronger in the conviction of Judaism than the Christian party has the conviction on their side.
Well, that could be because, A, there's a wonderful day school movement in Mexico City, and secondly, because of the Deportivo.
It's not only a movement. As you know that probably Mexico is the only country or the only city in the world that has approximately between 80 and 90% of the children who go to day school. And the day school is all the way from kindergarten to the university.
So it's a strong Jewish background.
Certainly.
Far stronger than probably one's Catholic background, who just gets it on an occasional Sunday or at confession.
Evidently.
Evidently,
because the end result is that the Jewish party is the prevailing party.
Now, I want to shift from Jewish apples to Jewish oranges, if I can, because there's a phenomena in which I at least had a small role, but in which you've had a major, major role, and that's the Marrano Jew phenomena. I mean, that's a huge phenomena, and we ought to start with Benta Prieta, and let's set that up and tell us about it, Sam.
Well, for this we would really need a few days, but we'll make it as short as
20
possible.
minutes is what we got, Sam.
Number one, Benta Prieta is a community that has a history since 1821, since the Inquisition was eradicated. Their story is that they were originally the Marranos who came with the conquistadores.
Let's set them up first. Where are they in
They are-
relationship to Mexico City?
Well, they are right about 3 kilometers before Pachuca, which is approximately 80 kilometers from Mexico City.
Mexico City, okay.
Now, the story that they tell is that the Inquisition, when it came to Mexico, they escaped into the mountains. In fact, the Inquisition had 10 official burnings of the Auto de Fe, and each one was a special festivity, very lavishly, and they used to do it on the day of the Immaculate Conception. That they used to gather in the thousands to see how they are burning those who are not accepting their faith. In fact, one of the most important families is probably the family of Carvajal. He was the governor of Monterrey. For one reason, because he had a big argument with one of the generals, they told the Inquisition that Carvajal, even though he was a converted Jew, that they said is a Marrano who is practicing Judaism. After trials and trials and trials, the family was completely burnt, except two brothers who escaped. One escaped to Spain, no, rather not Spain, escaped to Salonika, who became the chief rabbi there. And the other one escaped to Italy, who became one of the prominent surgeons. Then the wife of Carvajal, she disappeared, and we don't have any history. The history of the Benta Prieta is that she came to their community, and she became a part of their community. And they were hidden until 1821, when the Inquisition was eradicated. Then they came out of hiding, and they established the community. Now they have a very beautiful little community. In fact, your youth movement, Allen, was the one that built their social center.
It was in my days then.
But since then, they built their own synagogue with their own hands, actually rock upon rock, stone upon stone, brick upon brick, and they built their own synagogue, a very beautiful, unique synagogue.
I want to go back a little, Sam, because there's some gaps, and then I want to question you about their veracity. 1821, they come out of the hills.
That's right.
Where are they from 1821 till suddenly mid-1930s, when they're suddenly rediscovered? What's going on with that community for 100 years?
Well, number one, they had a continuity of those 100 years. They continued in a very small adobe little place, in a very, very poor section, and in fact, they have a Torah that dates that long, a very ancient Torah. We didn't know about it for a very simple reason. Number one, the Jewish community was very, very small in Mexico. When did it grow was actually immediately before the Second World War and during the Second World War, when Mexico actually liberated or liberalized the immigration, and several thousand people came to Mexico, and that's when the community really became a real Jewish community.
Sam, a somewhat scholar, I'll be kind to him, a somewhat scholar wrote a thesis a number of years ago where he says that this is all faulty-roll, their background. He says that they're a converted fundamentalist Christian group. Would you defend that?
Well, I don't want to get into the argument with him because he says that he happens to be an authority on the Marranos. I will not get into an argument, especially publicly, but there are many, many faulty points. Number one, what happened with the Christian minister who was converting them? And why didn't he convert them? And where did he disappear? And why did they drift into Judaism? And there are many, many other, well, like he said about Carvajal family. He admits that Carvajal family was burned at stake, and he admits that there is no record of the wife of the governor, and so therefore there is no confirmation in any way whatsoever with his theory, and in fact I don't even know where in the world he got that theory.
His theory is that a Christian fundamentalist minister, angered at being thrown out of his church, said he was going to convert all of them to Judaism just to show them. And I think he shows in his thesis some pictures of them in the early 20s, does he not? Of being part of children of the sons of Israel or something like that.
Well, number one, first of all, there are several communities even today beside Venta Prieta.
Right.
So not only that, when we had a census of the population in Mexico, there were 2 million who registered as Israelites. 2 million, and you know we only have 50,000. Why? Because we do have many churches they call La Iglesia Israelita, or La Iglesia del Dios de Israel. So anyone who deviates from the concept in Mexico, a Christian is a Catholic. They don't know really very, very little about a Christian being a Protestant. So anyone who is not a Christian Catholic must be a Jew. And especially those, for instance, the Seventh-day Adventists, they observe the Sabbath, they don't eat pork, and so on and so on, so they have Jewish customs. So they call themselves La Iglesia Israelita. So when he has those pictures, those are the pictures of those who admit to be Christians, not Jewish, but they call themselves Israelitas.
Sam, one of the things that I remember distinctly from the community was their devotion to being Jewish. That is, I remember 100% attendance on Friday night at services. I remember almost 100% attendance of the community on Saturday morning. I remember the rudiments of kashrut from the community. I remember them sending their kids to their own religious school and sending kids all the way into Mexico City. Does that still exist?
You're referring to the community
Venta
Prieta. Well, since then they even went further. They sent 18 of their children to Israel. Now, for them to send a child to Israel is a tremendous sacrifice because they are poor people. Now, they send them with the hope that they will return and they will revive the community into a real, genuine, strong Jewish community. But what happened is love as a strange way. They went to Israel, they fell in love with some Israeli girls, and some of them remained there. Some of them married them and came, and they didn't want to go back to Venta Prieta because it's a poor little community, so they remained in Mexico.
Sam, Venta Prieta is a wonderful experience, but you have an incredible story to tell, a personal experience story to tell about Veracruz, and we have to hear that now.
Well, this I call the new phenomenon that is taking place in Mexico. I have 3 communities that's beside Venta Prieta and beside my own congregation, Beth Israel. That's in Veracruz, that's the port of Veracruz. Then we have in Jalapa, Veracruz, and then we have in Matamoros, Puebla. Those are 3 congregations. Well, now they are already congregations, but they were before individuals where I was invited to address them and to have a seminar on Judaism. When I first came there and I asked them, why are you looking for Judaism? So they told me a story, how in the family, they had certain customs of traditional Judaism. And they were regular members of the church. And they asked the new generation, at least the new generation begins to ask questions. And as the minister, why is it that my great-grandmother told me that her great-grandmother and so on and so on were lighting candles on Friday night? Why Friday night? They had a custom where they walked into the door, they touched the side of the door and kissed it. Why? Because it's originally because the mezuzah. Some of them had yarmulkes. Some of them were more traditional who had tzitzis sticking out.
Except they were Catholic.
But they were Catholics. Some of them had drawings of a great-grandmother who was married by a priest in the church under a chuppah. They didn't know what it's a chuppah. They said, ¿Qué es eso? What is it? So the priest, either he didn't want to answer or he didn't know. So they formed study groups. It's very interesting. Now we have the study groups in the synagogues. They call them chavurot. They call them grupos, which is also chavurot. And then they began to realize that their place is in Judaism. They started asking questions, and the priest told them, acceptado por la fe, accepted by faith. Well, they said, faith alone is not enough. We want to know, why is it that we find many, many contradictions and so on and so on. Until the priest told them, actually, this is not your place. So they walked out and they formed 5 groups of study. And then they asked me to come, and I led a seminar for 2 days. And since then, I began visiting them about once a month. And every time I came to the airport, 50, 60 people came in their yarmulkes singing Avenu Shalom Aleichem, we brought peace unto you. And they started singing Atikva, started dancing the Hora. And every time I leave Veracruz, about 60, 70, 80 people are accompanying me at the airport, which is beautiful. So then eventually, about several years later, they came to the airport, they met me, they drove me to a place, and I see a big sign, Kehila Bet Shmuel, the community of Bet Shmuel, the house
named
of Samuel.
after you.
My name's Samuel Shmuel. You can imagine what a gratifying experience that was, that I said, here's a rabbi who has a monument built for him in his lifetime.
Now, the group has officially converted, correct?
Eventually.
Eventually.
Because, well, I couldn't convert them all together because, number one, they all had to have circumcision. They had to go to the mikvah. Not only that, I insist that they really know Judaism, so I have a study, which is the history, traditions, rituals, ceremonials, holidays, so that they will really be acquainted what is really genuine Judaism. Those who are ready, so I would say that at one time I would convert 21, 30, 14, 16. It all depends on how many are qualified. And now, the interesting thing is that every one of them, men, woman, and child, knows every service, every part of the service by heart.
They can daven a service.
They can daven, and not only when they daven, when we talk as thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy might, with all thy soul, I can readily say that I envy them, that they really do fulfill that with all thy heart, with all thy might, with all thy soul.
How big's the community now, Sam?
Now we have about 200 in Veracruz.
About 200 in Veracruz.
Veracruz.
All right, now we've got to go elsewhere in the same state, in Jalapa.
Jalapa, which is the capital of Veracruz.
Right.
As you know, that Mexico is also United States. It's called Estados Unidos de Mexico.
Right.
So Jalapa is the capital of the state of Veracruz. They have about 60. But they also have a group of 35 boys and girls who are from the age of 20 to about 30. And they are so versed in the Bible, which is unbelievable. They will quote you any part of the Bible, what book, what paragraph, and what sentence.
But this group is still not Jewish.
No, because
the second group.
Well, because they are still not accepting fully what you say 100% the oneness and the uniqueness of God, because they still believe that their personality is an ambassador of God.
But this is Marano roots.
Also Marano group.
All right, one more group. We're going to go north now. To Matamoros.
Well, Matamoros, that's the first time that I had the experience, was about 3 weeks ago. The leader of the group of Jalapa is becoming my ambassador. And I really didn't know it, that how he got involved in Matamoros, I will not know. But eventually I'm going to ask him. But I was invited there 3 weeks ago, and how amazed I was. You saw the sign before, but they put out in the hotel, it says, Bienvenidos Rabino Lerer. Welcome, Rabbi Lerer. And again, to marvel their devotion, because to be Jewish in an area where they never even heard of the name Jew, that's an actual sacrifice.
The Matamoros group, which hasn't converted yet, do they consider themselves Jewish?
They themselves consider them, they call themselves Israelitas. Somos Israelitas, hijos de Abraham, sons of Abraham.
In our last few moments, Sam, Anti-Semitism in Mexico. Bad?
Well, I think I mentioned it before. Wherever there is one Jew, there's anti-Semitism. Somehow, we will not get into the debate why. But there is some distinction, and there is, but I would say it's not as bad, if you want to measure it, as bad in the United States. Also, we have the Comité Central, which does defy anti-Semitism.
Sam, it's been a very fast half hour for us. For me, it's reminiscing like crazy. It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful just to hear more stories, to share stories about congregants, but to hear what is going on with Benta Prieta and the growing Murano phenomena, so to speak. Sam Lerer, I really thank you. Muchísimas gracias. No tenemos tiempo. We're out of time. And Sam Lerer, I want to thank you for being an important part of Encounter. Till the next time, for Encounter, I'm Allen Secher.